I just want to share a quick thought today. What are we going to call this? We're going to call this how to learn your lessons. I know that it can be really easy to slip into anxiety when you have a realization, then you worry about having to remember it or worrying about how to consciously apply it to your life. You don't actually have to remember it, and you don't have to consciously apply it. That's the thing. We forget that the subconscious mind is working with us, working for us in the background. Just because we can't see what it's doing doesn't mean it's not there. Doesn't mean it's not taking things in. So the first point I want to make, and I come across this a lot, people feel like they have a revelation, and then after that, they're worried that they forget it. They're either worried that they're going to forget it, or they feel they have forgotten it, that they're not applying it to their life. But what you have to remember is that whenever you evolve, you are now at level 1 of the new level, right? So if you're at, what do we call it? Like vibration level 2 or something. When you get to the top of that, you're feeling great. You're like, man, I know everything about this. I'm king of the world. Then you get to vibration level 3, let's say, just arbitrary terminology. Now you're at step 1, you're at the bottom of that new block. So now you don't feel like you're on top of the world anymore, but you are still better than you were yesterday. You are still evolving. You just might not feel that way. So what the catalyst for this video is the following. It's a little anecdote. A couple nights ago, I had a little bit too much to drink, which is not common for me at all. But I went out with some friends, and I had just one too many, and I was feeling just a little bit buzzed. So as a fairly, not a new experience, but an uncommon experience for me, I've never been a big drinker. I've never been into drinking culture, and never really understood or aligned with the idea of, going out drinking every weekend or I guess needing to drink to maintain that feeling of lowering your inhibitions. I was kind of musing on how I was feeling, having drunk a little bit too much. So I noted the fact that my inhibitions were lowered. I was feeling more confident, caring less. And then I had an epiphany. I realized how to use that. I realized that the goal is not to keep drinking so I can maintain that feeling. The goal is to remember exactly how that felt so that when I'm sober, I can recall the feeling and get back into that state. And furthermore, you take drugs, for example, recreational drugs. You can do the same for that. You can do the same for anything, really. I just think substances are a good example, right? So I think with everything in life, people are always chasing the dragon, but you don't need to. All you have to do is, in the moment, when you have that transcendent experience, you remember what it feels like so that you can recall the feeling. So aside from the coaching, the spiritual, mental, mindset, manifestation coaching, by the way, I'm not about plugging myself and advertising, but if you are interested, there's always a link in the description so you can book a session with me. But aside from that, I also teach music. I teach singing. That's what I studied. And with singing, I think it's fascinating and very poignant that that's the career I ended up in, considering what I'm talking about now, because singing can be very esoteric. Because we're dealing with muscles we don't have conscious control over, right? Obviously, we can control all the muscles that we need to improve our singing voice and improve our voice in general. But it's not like we can go, just lower your larynx. We can learn to do it, but the way we learn to do it is often through visualization, through feeling. And this is my point. This is why I'm talking about this. So what I tell my students is when we achieve the posture that we want, remember how it feels. Don't remember how it sounds, because your own perception of your voice is not accurate. It's not what other people are going to hear. Remember what it feels like, so that you can bring up that feeling in the future. So that when you're on stage and you can barely hear yourself, you can still rely on your feeling. And the same is true for everything. This is how we learn our lessons. We don't have to maintain a conscious record. You can write it down if you want. I do that myself. I find it's helpful to take that physical action of like getting it out of my head, writing it down and letting it sink in on its own. But we don't have to keep record of this stuff. When you learn a lesson, trust that you've learned it. It's in there and it will be applied on its own through you. You don't have to do it consciously. So as some homework, I'd like you to take note of the experiences you have throughout the week and see what certain things feel like. If you are a drinker, or you can apply it to anything really, but let's use the alcohol example again. If you are a drinker, try to hold on to, lock in, memorize that feeling, and not up here, in here, in your body, that feeling, like the subconscious in the back of the mind. Take note of that feeling so that you can conjure it up. You can pull it up later. Let me know how you go. Let me know what you think. As always, take what resonates and discard the rest.